Inspirational radio. Bring up with a talk show. Kicking it and having fun. So turn your radio up.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Yo, once again, back is the incredible, the re-up.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Get ready for another exciting episode of the Young Re-up. To my left, dare I say, Lasagna Witt, y'all check her out.
Hey, hey.
To my right, of course, my main man, Deacon Seaward. Look at him, look at him.
Hey.
Hey, and I'm the bishop. One good leg. You know what it is.
Hey, he got his cowboy stuff on again. Are we gonna have to get that after every cowboy win? Is that what's gonna happen? I just want to know for the rest of the season.
Well, listen. Let me tell you something. I the way things are going and playing out, I don't know if I'm gonna wear it a lot. So I'm gonna just wear it where I can. But
You can't do it.
I ain't trying to upset nobody because what we did in the off season in the draft is really not saying, "Hey, we got it. We're gonna get it." No, it's saying, we might catch an 8-8 this year. We might.
Hey.
We might be back home lacking. So I don't know.
Come on now.
Yeah,
it's hard.
You don't see no giant gear on me yet, so
man,
we'll see. Man, this show is gonna be really good. I was trying to think of what I wanted us to dive into today, and then a couple of things happened over the last couple of days. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a young lady that I met, and it ended up being just a conversation about Christianity and what it looks like in this world. And then Carla, my wife, actually sent me a video. There's a Christian artist that I used to listen to. He hadn't been out in a while, but his name is JR, and he's done stuff with Lecrae, Flame, just a lot of, that song, what's it called? The one we did a show about it. I can't think of the name of it, but I'm gonna play a little bit of his music, one of his songs, just so our audience, if you haven't been familiar with him or you haven't heard of him, you'll hear some of what he's about. But he actually had produced he did a little video basically announcing that he wasn't gonna follow Christianity anymore. He was becoming agnostic. And so, when she sent me that snippet, I was kind of curious about it because, like I said, a lot of the CHH or Christian hip hop that we look at to listen to today, he was, again, like, one of the founding people, in that, right? So I found his original video, other than the snippet, just to kind of hear a little bit more context around what he was talking, and some interesting things. So I marked probably about 4 or 5 different parts that I want us to take a listen to and speak to. But the option, the title of today, I think is very fitting. Living faithfully in a secular culture, Christianity in a changing culture, right? And there's so many different ways to go with this. I don't even know if we're going to really be able to, really, talk about all of it tonight. This might be something that we can continue, over the next couple of weeks, in one facet or another. But with all the things happening in politics, with all the things that's happening, we live in the United States, we live in Texas, all the things that are happening in the culture, there's definitely, a need, I think, to have a conversation about what does our faith look like and how do we still operate in that faith while being in this culture without hurting each other, with still being able to influence and disciple non-believers, and just really not losing our own faith, not losing our own, understanding of things. So I really want to talk, through a couple of options with that. But like I said, on the background of this, I'm going to use, this conversation about JR to just kind of spur some inspiration, spur some conversation from you guys, and then hopefully our audience who may want to chime in or have some suggestions with that, right? Just even reading the comments, a real popular Christian podcaster responded, to this video that I'm about to show, and he tried to kind of break down and answer some questions and stuff like that. But you can see in the comments, people who are kind of cheering this young brother on, saying, yeah, he's gotten out of the matrix. He's not drinking the Kool-Aid, and he's found real truth. And then you have people that are, either reaching out to the brother saying they're praying for him, or even accusing him, or coming down on him. And I think you guys are here when we play the video. It's another person that's seeking truth, right? And I think, well, we'll talk more about it. I have a couple of thoughts that I definitely want to share about it. So first and foremost, I'm gonna play a little snippet from one of his songs, so that you guys can kind of get familiar with who he was, or who he is, not who he was. This was a song back in 2011, right? So this tells you how far it goes back. Like this man has really been in that gospel vein. So this song is called "Trusting You," right? And it's talking about trusting Jesus, right? It's talking about encouraging people who have dealt with different issues and things like that. And again, he's a very creative, eclectic type singer. But like I said, I'm gonna play probably about a good minute or so of that song, just to give y'all a feel. Definitely go, support him. Go check out his music. It's definitely stuff that I would recommend. So let me bring up this song. Like I said, it's called "I Trust You."
Yeah.
No, I like his style.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
particular.
And that's his song. I mean, that's his
Hmm.
style. It's very eclectic, right?
Hmm.
He was like one of the first kind of Christian rappers, singers slash, um, just bringing in a lot of different forms of music, right? And his
Right.
production, he's a Grammy Award winner. The song that I can't think of right now, with Lecrae and Flame,
Hmm.
actually won a Grammy. So, very, very pronounced in the music industry, right? Um, and as you can hear, from the song, right? some concepts of Christianity, concepts of transparency about his walk coming from the streets and things like that. The other thing that I was going to point out, and I might touch a little bit more on it, is like when I was reading about the song itself in the description, it had a video where he was actually speaking against something in Jay Z, the deception of Jay Z, right?
Mm.
And he was, basically talking about that from a standpoint, some things he found out interesting that was, I guess being promoted by Jay Z or whatever at that time. That he was saying that, as Christians we need to step up, right? So I'm giving you guys this as a background to what you guys are about to hear now, right, in
Right.
2024.
Hmm.
Um, so again, for our listeners, and I definitely want you guys to chime in. I'm gonna, what I'll do is I'm gonna play a certain section. It's usually about 30 seconds to, maybe a minute or two. And then, I want us to back in and kind of talk to what he's saying, right? And from a couple of standpoints. One, do we understand? Do we, agree? Do we can see how he's thinking, what he's thinking? Um, Ultimately leading to, the end of this video, which I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all this, the cliff notes, where this young man is going to say, after all of this, um, that he no longer believes in Jesus, right? He no longer believes in the Bible the way, it's been given us to, and basically he's agnostic at this point. He doesn't know, he doesn't believe that there is, a God or a being or, anything that we should be worshiping, or that we should be connected to. All right. So before I bring in, any initial thoughts before I play this, about either the title or anything that I've said so far.
I think it's good. I would like to know his premise and perspective because a lot of times when people going in a certain vein, I see from my standpoint they get disillusioned. Like
Hmm.
something happened real hard, God didn't come through the way they expected, or all
Hmm.
the people they look up to that they thought had God a certain way, they don't have it when they go to meet them or they see them. So a lot of times it's something that hits them hard, like in their family, personal life, or they just get disillusioned. Is when I find that most people kind of wave and be like, oh no, maybe God ain't all this, or maybe he's not all that. But it's usually something. It's like a catalyst that way. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm curious to know when you play his story or whatever, what's the catalyst or like what's the event, or it could be a culmination of events too. Like you keep get disappointed after disappointed after disappointed, but it's something. You don't just get up one day and be like that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
you're gonna hear a lot of that in this discussion. So the first part, right, is, so this is around the 11th minute. It,
Mhm.
if I'm gonna put the link to this description or link to this video in our description, so everybody can go and get their full context of it. But just for
Yeah.
the sake of time, and I just went through. It's about 35 minutes and just
Mhm.
highlighted. To your point, assigning some things that I think caught my attention.
Mhm.
And could possibly have led to some of what he has going on. And again, ultimately what I want to get to is, as Christians,
Right.
and living in this society where we're seeing so much, right, and we're experiencing so much that challenge our faith, that
Mhm.
challenge our thoughts, and challenge what we see as Christians. um how do we operate in that, right?
Right.
So here's the first part. And I actually even wrote little titles down, but I'm not gonna give the title. Y'all probably can figure out what we're talking about here. So let me pull
To
this
my
up.
wife, to my kids, um, Keenan, Liam, Lizzie, Paco. Um, y'all are why I wake up and do this every morning. Y'all are why I fight my mind and I fight um, when it's harder to fantasize dying than it is living, sometimes, most of the times, y'all are the only thread holding me from this life and the next. Not now, but when I'm in my episodes, that's what you are and are daily to me.
I'm sorry. I wanted to play that part first, right? Because to me, it kind of highlighted maybe some suicidal thoughts about life. Um, and, to your point earlier, Sonia, um, before that, he mentioned, well, I don't know if it's before that or in this section that I'm about to play, but, experiencing some death in his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing, some people close to him, um, situations that I think are hard for him to kind of grasp at this
Mm-hmm.
particular point. Um, and this next part that I'm going to let you guys listen to is going to be about him being diagnosed with a couple of things like ADHD, bipolarism,
Mm.
um, and some therapy type things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why he's why he needed that type of thing, right? And then after this part, I definitely, because I think this part and the previous part kind of tie hand in hand. That's the reason why I'm gonna play them back to back, and then we'll pause and just have kind of a conversation about that because ultimately, I think mental health and you know major things happening in our life that we can't reconcile, and that as a church we don't do a good job of helping people reconcile,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of can help lead to some of this confusion. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so let me play this real quick, and then we'll dive into that part of the conversation.
Disorder, ADHD, and bipolar relationship, loss of income, and just loss. It was one point in time I was like, God, shit. I was like, if you're trying to kill your boy, just do it.
Oh, and I forgot to tell y'all that there's some language in this, right? So for our audience, hide your kids, hide your, anybody you don't
That's
want to
right.
hear no. I mean, it's not vulgar per se, but there's definitely a couple of words in here that
Colorful.
Yeah, I got you.
some
Mm-hmm.
virgin ears might be nervous about. So forgot to pre-warn y'all. He shared one already.
Even though I wasn't thinking, reasonably, but that was a hard season. And so going through a lot of that, fast forward to now, I found out that I have been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, ADHD, and bipolar 2.
Mm-hmm.
And all three of those were a shocker. But I knew something was wrong with me. And so, upon those revelations, I had to do something about it. I had to go get therapy. Shout out to Don, like you've been holding me down. And dang, I forgot old boy before her, but you know what I'm talking about. Shout out to you, bro. Because counseling is a must when you're dealing with ailments of the mind. I most definitely hope to heal from all of this stuff, or believe I will heal from it because I don't, I don't believe I'm gonna succumb to it. Shit, I believe I will overcome it. And so therapy is a must, right? So anybody that's going through depression, if you've lost somebody, if you can't shake that feeling of toxic talk to yourself, if you find yourself drinking or smoking or doing anything, if you feel like your mind is effed up, please go get help. I can't stress that enough. Let's talk about where I've been.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop there for a second, right? Like I said, I think I kind of came in on the tail end of it, but um, he mentioned some loss in his family, loss of income, loss, a life things happening, right? And I can tell you, I'm in a season of my life right now where, I can relate to that. Like, I think all of us have, points in our life where we can see life in, and what that looks like. So let me back into that. How do you guys, what is y'all feeling on, first of all, how Christians talk about, things like ADHD, bipolarism, depression? Like, me personally, when I grew up in church, it was, you got to pray these demons, these thoughts out of you, so counseling was kind of frowned upon. It was more, not, if you're going that way, you're kind of doubting God, doubting God's ability to change your mind or renew your mind or something like that. But what are y'all's thoughts about, someone that's dealing with that type of thing, and what kind of help they can look forward to?
Well, first, I don't think he or anyone in that situation should go away from God. I think that's a time to get closer to Him and really lean on Him. Um, Second, I think it's definitely helpful to do both, to get the counseling for your natural mind and to seek God for your spiritual mind. Because at the end of the day, you need something in the natural that can, as people say now, make it make sense. So if you do that and allow that to kind of take shape and form and everything, you settle that part of your mind where you can move on to your spiritual and gain more of a control over your direction and how you're moving overall as far as that. So I don't want to go against either of those because I think they're both helpful and both needed, especially in today's climate, because a lot of us are facing multiple challenges at once. And when you're doing that, your mind can be taken in a lot of different directions. And if you're not careful, what I'm saying, it can be pulled, too far. So you have to, keep something that's going to keep you grounded on both sides. So
So let me ask you this: in your experience, do we do a good job in the church of articulating that?
no, not at all. Like you said, definitely it's been told to us, don't go over there, with them folks, get closer to God, read your word, do this and do that. And I'm not knocking that at all. Like I said, that's needed. That's for your spiritual mind. But you have a natural mind that needs logic, that needs, for things to go in a certain order. And if that's not doing that, then it's a problem, you know?
And I'll say that, I think a lot of people have a misconception of what counseling really is, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's not even really about the logic. It's about, one, being able to, talk with someone outside of your situation, right? That can help you articulate or put words to your feelings, and then possibly give you some tools, some things that you can do or, put in place or, um, think about, to help you in the right direction. And to your point, Dion, I think prayer and fasting and all the different things that we are taught in church are super super important in that. But I think practically also, not being afraid to have conversations with someone, having you know um, a counseling, like even in, I don't know if it's in Proverbs or Psalms, but it talks about counsel, seeking counsel, wise counsel,
Wise counsel. Yeah,
Hmm.
right?
absolutely.
And so, I think, and I'm going to bring all of this back. I'm really just going in the order of how he's talking about it. I kind of wish I would have did this backwards, played what he's going to say at the end, and then play these different things. But I didn't have time to set all of that up. But the reason why I think this is important when you hear what he says is, to Sonia's point earlier. I think this becomes the crack, right?
Hmm.
The crack in in our armor, the crack in our, and where the enemy can kind of seep in and create doubt, create, things. And because we're, and for the lack of a better word, so religious in church,
Mhm.
um, we miss the relationship with other people, the empathy. Like even the responses that I'm seeing into this video to him lack empathy. Right?
Mhm.
It's challenging him. It's it's answering his questions like how dare you, not do, you know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
tone of the answers to it, to me, aren't anything that's going to really, help him get to the truth more.
Let me tell you my experience.
Mhm.
He has a position. Like he have influence and he made like them records. Like he's not small time Grammy Award winning. And I'm gonna tell you a lot of times when you have position, you got to have a strong community. And this is what I mean. The enemy seeks, walk to and forward in the earth, seeking whom he may devour. When you have a position of prominence, 10 times more devil is going to attack you than would attack somebody who has less position or less influence. There are people that preachers, that target music, that target people that are strong in the faith. And it's a reason they do. If I can make him fall, I can get all his. So they have real pressures in the spirit, and they need a strong, when I say a strong community, prayer warriors, intercessors, a good pastor that they, believe that following the word, because they become under attacks that's not normal to a regular person that don't have that office. So when you have a prominent position or office and you have a realm of influence, you need a stronger faith-based community because they target you day and night. Like they don't switch up. They have camps that target you. They have, because the enemy, he is very organized. He's not just chaotic. Now, your life might look chaotic, but he's very synchronized and syncopated in the attacks that he launches against you. So, with somebody like him, and that's why it's so important as Christians that we pray for one another and pray for positions of authority and influence because they have greater attacks. And even in listening to him, and his music having that strong influence and being so honest and really getting that big following, I could tell that he was a threat to the kingdom of darkness. So what you got to do with somebody, you have to put a lot of pressure on them. You have to come at them in the spirit. You have to target their life. And what I'm saying is, we as Christians have to be more empathetic, like you say, have our prayer list and cover people that have realms of influence and that influence people because the enemy targets them the hardest because I don't have to target your million followers. All I got to target is you.
Right.
If I can get a crack in your life, get you to fall down, get you weak, or get you down, when you start talking about being atheist or being, I might not know there is God or ain't God, or talking how you talk, then I can put a crack in their foundation because they following you because they believe in you. So I just want to interject that because sometimes the pressures that you feel are not all natural. It's supernatural, but it's giving you natural circumstances, and but it's coming from the spirit realm. And a lot of times people don't know how to adjust in the spirit and in the natural, and they'll think it's something natural, but the influence is from the spirit realm. So I would interject that as well. These positions of power, influence, these great positions, they are extreme stress. They are targeted extremely harder than a regular person with a regular everyday life. So I would interject that part too to really keep, leaders and people of influence up because they have extra attacks on them just because
Absolutely.
of their influence and how many followers and people listen to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's super key, because as far as, again, I skipped past some of these parts, but he was I think a youth pastor in his church, and a lot of this stuff that he started going through was when he took a sabbatical from church, right? So he stepped away from his congregation. Some life things started happening. Well, some of those things had already started happening, but he felt like he had to get away from the ministry to have some time to kind of think through and walk through those things. So the youth, like you said, Grammy Award winning artists. Let me see. Just on this page, you got 614 subscribers, but I can tell you millions of people in the Christian faith know if you say JR, they know who you're talking about, right? because again, late 2000s, early 2000s. This is definitely one of the cornerstone people of and musicians. A lot of the music that we hear today, whether people know it or not, was probably derived from a person like this, right? So I'm gonna play this next part. There's two more parts I'm gonna play, and then we can just really dive into well, maybe possibly three, um, but we can really dive into the overall conversation, which again is living faithfully in a secular society, right? And these next points are going to be kind of things that are near and dear to me, stuff that we've kind of talked about on this show, right? About how we operate as Christians and the danger of people witnessing that, the danger of people, seeing that, and how it adds confusion to who Christ really is. Because one of the main scriptures that pops in my mind is us being a light, in darkness, right? And what that really looks like. We're a representation of Christ, whether we know it or not, on this earth. Like, for people who don't believe and don't, have a hard time believing in a God that they can't see, right? They should be able to see them through our character, through how we act, how we respond to situations. As we're being transformed, right? So this part, he's going to talk a little bit about George Floyd and that situation. So this is kind of when he started really questioning his faith, and he's not the first Christian, he's not the first person that I've heard use scenarios like that um, to describe their concern and get doubt just based off of how Christians responded. So-called Christians, believers responded to situations like that. So let me play that.
I'm gonna mash out for a couple months, and take a sabbatical. But was I not prepared? They joked with me. And it was like, hey, they was like, make sure you come back now. Because they know many pastors, boy, once you hit that sabbatical and you start thinking, you just start thinking or you start wilding. They gonna come back with the resignation papers. But I took a sabbatical, and during that sabbatical, George Floyd happened. And this phenomenon hit me different than, what our city of St. Louis did with Mike Brown. This was something that, for me as an American man from African descent, seeing this movie played out so many times on the streets of America, I was like, out of all the ones we didn't seen, I'm like, man, it's the most clearest proof that we got a policing problem that I've ever seen captured on video, right? At least in the last decade. So, as I'm sitting back on sabbatical, of course I'm looking, I'm weighing in, I'm reading the news, I'm watching everything, but I'm still trying to stay back and not be too involved in that whole thing. But I remember going on Facebook. I remember going to our church's page, and some of the parishioners that were there and their pages, and then some of the conversation they were having. And I was, I ended up getting sucked in for about 3 hours. And what I saw disgusted me. What I saw, I guess what I was hoping to see was at least first the Christians, no matter what your ethnicity or race is, you could see this and be like, man, we need reform. Like, that's wow. Like, that's crazy work that we just saw somebody murked by the police on camera. But to my surprise, what I saw looked more like tribalism. It was the white, most of white Christians on this side saying, what did he do? What did they do this time? Oh, it's always something. If he just would have, gotten a job and not been doing things illegal, if he just would have, whatever. It's always, that's what I was hearing. And then from those who seem to have a, I don't know, black butt, those who, because I had a lot of white brothers and sisters hit me up saying, like, JR, I'm not with that shit. And so I'm talking about I'm trying to be careful with my words, but then it was a side that was mostly African American and, those who kind of in the justice work, if that even makes sense, right? Because we all should be. And that question made me, not question, but that dichotomy made me say, or ask the question rather, damn, are we worshiping the same Jesus? And while being on sabbatical,
All right. So I'm gonna stop there for a second. The next part ain't too far after. But what are your thoughts? What did y'all hear in that statement um, from Jr. And from this
I feel like
situation?
what I hear is internal struggling. It's the internal struggle, and it's some things that he's been contemplating and looking at, and getting really hit hard, and his core beliefs. It's like, okay, what am I seeing? What is the response, and what is this? And I'm going to tell you, everything he's feeling and seeing is legitimate, but this is the compass that anybody listen. I'm going to tell you this. People are people and they are not God, and people are never going to be equivalent to God. He's always above. He's in a class all by himself. So never equate people to God. That may be, we're supposed to represent God, but if they don't, God is still God, even if nobody represents him right. He's never going to change. He's the same today, tomorrow, forever. It's in your word. And that's what I would caution and say. Sometimes the representatives don't get it right, but the God of the representatives is always right. No matter in life, your parents may let you down, your wife, your kids, anybody ever been in a relationship, you're going to get let down some kind of way. I don't care who you are. That's just life. You're going to get
Yeah,
disappointed by somebody. But God is always going to be God of your disappointment. And if you can keep that focus, no matter how low you get, it's like, God, I may not even understand this season of my life. I may not even understand. This is what I do know. You don't change. You are still the same yesterday, today, and forever. And even if I change, people change. You never will. So let me keep that standard at the core and the root of my life. Let me keep that as my moral compass, that you are still God. You're always going to be God, and you are classed by yourself as God. People may
yeah,
get it right, they may get it wrong, but you still gonna be God at the end of the day. If we can keep that, when you have them hard days, know that He's with you, no matter what. Up, down, in, out, round, get your counseling, get your meds, do whatever you have to do to fight in this life. I don't care if you gotta take meds, take them. If you gotta see the counselor, go. Get your Bible, get all the help that you can get. That's what I'm saying. But always know at the end of the help, God is still gonna be God. If everybody represent him wrong, he's still gonna be God.
yeah, and Sonia, I completely agree with you there. But I think and it's not even a challenge to it. But what I would add or suggest also though is I think it becomes an issue when you're able to say that because you're a mature Christian, right? And because you have built and you have a relationship with God. But I remember there was one point in my life where I didn't know God the way I know him now, right? I knew him more so with how I
Mhm.
was introduced to him, how I was taught, how how people gave me help give me understanding of the Bible, right? And
Hmm.
again, not speaking against that, we always have this conversation between
Oh yeah.
about religion and relationship, and I think that in times like this. So one, my hope and my prayer, and I think even for this young man, JR, and for people like him, when they go through something like this, if they're really looking for truth, if they're really asking these tough questions, um, all roads lead back to Jesus. You know what I mean? And like I said, when I was going through, a good decade of my time of trying to run away from God and, call
Okay.
myself running from God and running right into, some of my, my purpose here. Um, when I came back to my sense, kind of like the prodigal son, you appreciate things differently. You look back and you say, wait a minute, like I was taught this, but this is what God is really showing me about being connected to Him. This is His heart for things, His heart for people, right? Um, Unfortunately, we're looking at things like George Floyd. We look at things like slavery. We look at things like the Inquisitions and different things throughout history that were based off of the name of Christ, right? And the name of religion, the name of God, saying that we're doing this for that, right? Pulling scriptures out and misusing them, using them like rocks and things like that. Um, that, in our conversation tonight about culture is the thing that, humanity is looking at, and um, I think my challenge to all of us as Christians is, to your point, it's not that we're not flawed, right? We all are flawed, right? It's just the fact that we pretend like we're not, right? When we come into Christ, a lot of Christians pretend like they got it together, or whatever sin they got isn't, that bad compared to yours. You know what I mean? And then we come across with this facade. Like, if we were just very truthful about our own struggles and about the fact that we are all a work in progress, I think that would come across better or come across to non-believers a little bit more better than us just pretending like we got saved, we're perfect now, and everything that we say or do is really in line with God. When some of it, truth be told, this stuff like with George Floyd was just people's personal opinion about the situation and had nothing to do with God, you know. But because we don't have the ability, or we haven't been taught to separate the two, you know what I mean? We combine the two, and now you got people looking at it and being extra confused, right? So what I would say is that there's levels, I think, to it. You got babes in Christ, and I'm not calling him a babe. Again, I'm not the spiritual, the spiritual judgment of who's mature, who's not, and all of that. That's God. But obviously, there was a disconnect, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, when the Bible says that you can't be plucked from His hand, um, there, like we've said when we've had shows about the atheists, there may have been a lack of relationship or understanding of who he really is. But my prayer is that when people go through things like this, Lecrae talks about his deconstruction, that they come back and they have a deeper level of relationship with God. It's kind of like when you have a argument or something in your marriage, or with a friend, and y'all are able to reconcile because y'all
Hmm.
have, you communicate about it. Then you come in with a deeper level of love, a deeper level of understanding
Hmm.
for that person that you're with. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Mm, definitely. This
It's
is good
sabbatical.
because I
Go ahead.
think
I'm
with
sorry.
mental health being a big deal, I think this is a good show and it's a good topic. And I'm glad you brought the because of the taboo subjects of mental health, and and sometimes that will have a lot to do with how you view God or how you see God. It's your mental stability or well-being. And like he owned up to having being diagnosed with a few things, and it's like, oh man, I need to address these things because it's a battle of the mind. The mind emotions, it's a fight, and the
Yeah.
enemy's over it. Struggling with is that's where you serve God with the mind. Like with the mind, you do what you need to do, but with all your heart, soul, and mind. And so your mind is very serious, and mental health is very serious. Like it is something that we didn't talk about or address, but any type of traumas you experience going to influence your mental health. How you were raised going to influence your mental health. Everything that in society, what you view on TV, how you raise, how you even view God, you're going to view it through your mind and however your perception is or how you were introduced. So I think this is a very good topic for us to dive into and to explore and to see how others don't have to feel isolated. Just because you're struggling in your mind or you feel like something's going on, something, it's okay, get help. It's okay, talk to somebody, seek help, seek counselors, get people involved, go to the doctor, do whatever you need to survive, because that's what it's about. You have to be able, and if you having a struggle in your mind and you feel, and it's not going to do your family or friends or anybody any good if you do something and you just disappear. And when I say that, like disconnect, you can show up and be here and not be here. You
Right.
physically here, but you totally disconnected. So whatever you have to do to survive, if you hear this show at any time, do it. If you need to go doctor, help, if you need a counselor, talk, 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 get the help you need, any kind of help you need. Don't let nobody make you feel bad. I don't care what it is. If you need it, go seek it, look for it. And we applaud you for even owning that you need help. So I think that's awesome. That's what I'll
And Dion, were you about to say something earlier?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, obviously we can see that with him, this whole situation kind of began with that sabbatical. And, in going into that, people tried to warn him against that because, the point in the issue is that idle mind is the devil's workshop. You isolate yourself or you get away, that just like when Jesus went in on his fast or whatever, the devil was like right there at him day in and day out because he had him alone and he could just bombard him and come at him and come at him. And that's what happens when you get away from kind of your covering and your source of strength and everything. The devil is going to come at you a lot harder, especially, to Sonny's point earlier, that he has position. You know what I'm saying? He can infect and affect and influence a lot of people at one time. And somebody like that has a lot of power in the sphere and everything. And so definitely, you knew the enemy was going to attack when he got him alone as far as that. And so I think that attack, even when you hear him talk on this particular video, he sounds tired. There's a
Mm,
difference between sounding calm and collected and sounding really worn out. I mean, he sounds really like he's just been in a heavyweight bout. He sounds very tired. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that is what a constant attack will do to you. It'll make you
mhm,
feel really tired, mentally and physically. And so,
mhm,
at this point, I don't know. You know, Obviously, with him choosing a different way to go, that kind of changes his trajectory. But if he ever wanted to come back, it definitely is going to put him in a position to do more and be more because he's seen the other side. He understands, getting out there on your own, you can really get beat up.
Yeah, Dion, I'll say this, right? Yeah, definitely the sabbatical, I think, is kind of where it happened for him. Um, but I think there, so I want to say I don't think a sabbatical is necessarily a bad thing. I think we do need to get away from
mhm.
some things, especially in church, right? Because you got to understand a pastor is getting pulled on spiritually all the
Yeah.
time, right? And
Oh,
so I think in order to in any point of leadership, there has to be a point where you get away and you recharge, right? But to your point about if you're getting away and your foundation, your, you mentioned Jesus, right? The thing about Jesus was Jesus had the word. He was the word. You know what I mean? So Satan can't come at him half stepping with anything. Unfortunately, a lot of us aren't Jesus level. You know what I mean? And I really love your point about, him being tired, right? Because I
Mhm.
think about somebody like Samson,
Mhm.
and the decisions you make when you are tired,
Mhm.
when life has really weighed you down, beat up on you.
Mhm.
Again, he talked about a lot of personal issues that happened, people that probably were really close to him that passed and died. And then you see this George Floyd thing, happen, really over the last, I'd say, good decade, man. And I'm going to probably skip this next part, but he's going to talk about Donald Trump. He's going to be like, he doesn't understand how, as Christians, we can look at someone and, of such low character, right?
Mhm.
And say that this is our man, this is God's man. So he's questioning even, that thought process. And like you said, Lasagna, like, one of the points that I definitely wanted to make sure that we got to today was to not focus on the people, to understand that the people that we're looking at are imperfect. They are, none of us have arrived yet, right? Which
Mhm.
means at some point we're going to disappoint, right? Um, it's just that my challenge, even my personal challenge to myself, um, is to really avoid coming across self righteous. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Coming across like I got it all. Like religious pride is becoming a thing that irritates me now. Like, um, because it's false. It's a false sense of pride. Even the righteousness that we have is Christ.
Mhm.
Like we gave him our filthy rags for his righteousness, and now we want to gloat and act like this goodness, this grace, this mercy that, that you see on my life is because of something I did.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And um, to me, that helps Satan do his job, right? Satan already has a job to continue to, try to put things in this young man's life, right? We're just using him for an example, but all of us, like, doubts and things like that. It's already enough with him just coming at us with those things. But for us as Christians to add value or try to add confirmation to that type of thing,
Mhm.
um, I think that's very serious. You know,
Right.
um, I think we got a lot of people in leadership. I think we got a lot of people now with social media that have voices, that ain't been in the kitchen long enough and ain't spent enough time with God relationally enough to really you know bring out
Mhm.
that point of view. But those are the point of views that come out the loudest. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Those are the point of views that people are seeing. There's not. I, and again, I don't care who people vote for, but as a Christian, it irks me when I see somebody like say that Donald Trump is a godly man, or he represents he's protecting the church or anything like that. Character matters.
Mhm.
Character matters. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it's what you do. It's your
Mhm.
actions. That makes sense. And if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like, I don't care what it say it is. And so I'm gonna skip that part, and the last part that I'm gonna bring up from this video, is towards the end, right before he actually says that he's no longer he no longer believes in Jesus, um, as being the Son of God, and different points of the Bible. He's going to go through a list of questions that he either brought to people, I guess, in his leadership, or questions about the Bible and creation and things like that. That again, we've done other shows where we've listened to atheists, we've listened to people who are agnostic. We've interviewed your nephew before, who I think did a really good job, kind of speaking to some of these things. But I wanted to highlight some of these things, and then again we can probably finish up this section of it. But I think we probably need to do a part 2 to this conversation next week, to really add value to this overall topic, of being in a secular society and remaining faithful, keeping our faith, and what are the practical things that need to happen with that, right? And like I said, Lasan, you've already touched on one that we can say is the highlight for today, and that's not to really understand. There ain't no Christian you've seen, your pastor, whatever, is perfect. And if you focus too hard on them, you're gonna see something that you're not gonna like, you're not gonna agree with, and if you put that on God, it can really mess you up.
Definitely.
Mess you up. So let me play this part.
The Great Exodus, the Red Sea splitting. I mean, you name it. The top.
Bring it back a little bit.
Some of those issues were, just name them. The creation story, Adam and Eve. God sanctioning rape, torture, slavery, and hate towards the other, sexism, and more in the Old Testament. God's sovereignty and the problem of suffering. God and the existence of evil. Biblical events and characters having no real historical proof, like David and Goliath, the Great Exodus, the Red Sea splitting. I mean, you name it, the Tower of Babel, the flood story, Noah's Ark, and etc. Things that when you look for their actual evidence for their actual existence in the real world, there is none. And the little that's found is usually, magnified or, perpetrated as actual proof by those of us, who call themselves theists. Another issue was the Roman Catholic Church and its hand in chattel slavery. Constantine and his role in Christianity's dominance in the West, and also, last but not least, the 42 laws of Ma'at, or the negative confessions found on Kemet, or Egyptian hieroglyphics, 4,000 years before Abraham would even be born, right? That alone is still rocking me.
Okay. So those are some questions that he said he started processing, in his own head, based off of, his walk and his understanding, his reading of the Bible. So, what are your thoughts about that? And what would you say if he was on this show, or if we were speaking to him, right now about, any of that?
Yep. Dion can't do it. You know he was finna say, Dion,
What's up?
you saw it,
What's
Shelby,
up?
did you? Shelby, you saw that, didn't you?
I did.
And you saw it just like that. Empathy. Look at him. It's 8 o'clock. Look at him. You can't say.
I just
Go ahead, Thea.
those things, like, they're explainable, and obviously, they have been explained, but there are a lot of things that have happened that have no real historical, understanding as far as that. If we look at it from that aspect of it, Stonehenge, these crop circle things that are happening or what have you. Basically, they sent a team out to see if they could either recreate or explain how these crop circles keep appearing. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't recreate it, A, and B, they couldn't explain how, because the actual crops or whatever are basically laid down, they're pressed down. And so they got different instruments and different things to try to recreate that. And they couldn't do it in the time that it took those other circles to be created.
Right.
They worked overnight, all night long, and still only made a small circle where these large things are happening as far as that. So there are a lot of things that are unexplainable. So that is not a catalyst to say, well, if you can't explain it, I ain't finna follow. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why God is God. He does things to confound, you know what I'm saying, even the smartest person or whatever. So you have to be able to be strong minded and strong willed enough to, count it all joy at the end of the day. Don't, you know what I'm saying, throw in the towel just because some things get hard or some things are unexplained as far as that.
Well, and Sonia, I know you had something to add to that, to this too. But what I will say is this. I, one of the things that I believe is that eventually, Jr. and people like him will eventually, if they keep asking questions, right? So if he's going to do the same thing that he's doing right now as a Christian, as an agnostic, again, I know you're going to keep asking yourself, if you're looking for truth, you're going to eventually get to a point where some of what you believe as an agnostic isn't going to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Big Bang Theory, or agnostics really lean more to science, and there's going to be a lot of things that are still quote unquote theories right now that we were taught in school, that this is what happened, right? This is how it happened, but it's still a theory. Why? Because there's no evidence of it, and you're not. And and I think your nephew said this. And in a lot of cases, Lasagna, you end up having to have more faith to believe science than
Mm-hmm.
what you have to believe that there is a creator. There is a creator that that had a purpose, that had that understands details all the way down to how breath works, how DNA works, how all of these things happen. Science, it can dig as far as it can. It'll never get to the answers. It
Mm-hmm.
never will. And so that's why I'm confident that if people like JR are really being genuine, right, about why they're leaving the faith, and they're really continuing this search for truth, that eventually the road leads back to an all-knowing sovereign God, right? Um, and that's what I believe. But I think as Christians, and again, next week we'll probably get more into this. If we do better about creating a culture, right, um, creating an atmosphere where we're being transparent and honest about who God is in us and what He's doing in our life, as opposed to taking credit for being good, or whatever else we end up doing, for judging and being less empathetic for situations that are happening, in this world, when people are looking for help and support and love. Um, then I think it helps people get there a little bit better, because one of the points he brought up was what he said, the endorsement of God, of rape and murder and incest in the Bible, right? Again, probably coming from a place of not understanding context, not understand historical context in the Bible, or the content in which a lot of these things were written in the Bible, and again used historically to try to defend certain behaviors or certain selfish motives from the people who wanted them to who wanted to be able to still kind of walk and do what they want with a so-called backing from the Bible. So let me
Mm-hmm.
back up for a second, Sonya. I know I see your head, your brain moving.
It's moving. It's moving. I'll tell you this. If none of the stories was true, I believe in the Bible, I believe in all that. If you couldn't prove anything, one thing nobody can ever take from me is the voice that talks to me. And a voice that's been talking to me for years, telling me stuff there's no way that I could have known on my own. And somebody might say, "Oh, that's your intuition, that's spirit." Who told me to get on the other side of the road? Like, get your car on the other side of the road right now, and the car door open and this baby falls in the street. Who told me that? I got so many. Who grew bones back in my teeth when I got X-rays and they told me I need to get them removed and it's all black. Then I get to Texas and I didn't go to dentist for years. And then when they got there, and because losing bone, I had teeth pulled, like 6 teeth pulled, so it was the truth. But I didn't get them all pulled. Then when I get to Texas, why are those teeth gone and your bones are so strong? Who put those bones back in your mouth? That's they tell me that's impossible to lose bone and to get it back. And I have the evidence that the teeth were gone because the teeth are gone. And because the bone was lost. But when I got here, the bones are strong. And the dentist was like, I don't understand why you have teeth missing and you have bones this strong. The dentist didn't know that years ago I didn't have bones. Who did that? People can say anything they want to say. I can't prove none of them stories was true in the Bible. But what I can prove is what he say to me and what he's done for me, what he talks to me. And he gets me up in the midnight hour and he'll tell me to do this, pray for them, do this, do that, get up and pray. And somebody else told me somebody had a gun pulled on them. And at the same time, God telling me to get out of my bed, said, pray for, it was a young man named Dion. And he said, pray for Dion right now. And I'm like, okay, God bless Dion. He said, no, get out the bed and pray for Dion right now. I jumped out the bed, got on my knees, and I called Dion next. I said, Dion, what was you doing at 7:36? Just you ain't gonna believe this, son. These dudes tried to jack me for my shoes, and they had me at gunpoint. And I was so mad I didn't give it to him. And he said it was all of a sudden was his voice in the distance. And I said, hey, what y'all doing? He said, and they took off. He said, but I wasn't gonna give up my shoes. If I got killed, I wasn't gonna give up my shoes because I was that mad. But just all of a sudden, but just stuff like that. Who told me to get up at 7:36 in the dead of a nap? Stuff that you can about the Bible, I can't prove none of that. But stuff that I can explain is what he's done for me. And that's all the best that I can give somebody is the personal relationship. And what we as a body have to do is train people to get in tune with God, to listen to God and get a relationship with God. And if none of that is what it was, can't nobody take what you got with God away when he done it for you. You can't never take them stories from me. You can't take it from me because it's in my DNA. Nobody, it's nobody else that was like, oh, over here, he finna get shot, and they over there, and you over here praying. You at another side of town and getting teeth in your mouth, telling me to drive on. I can go on with countless stories. Who did that? Who said that? It's my conscience told me to get on the other side of the street. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
unexplainable. For somebody who don't believe in God, say, well, that was your conscience. My conscience knew to tell me to drive to the other side of the street, and my conscience knew that this baby's gonna fall in the back of the car. No, sir. It was a clear voice. I did what the voice said. It's everywhere, all over my life. That's what you can't take from me is the evidence that I have of the things that God did. I may not be able to debate with you. I may not be able to prove none of the Red Sea part, but I can tell somebody what I know about him for my own self. You can't take that from me. That's what we have to train people. We help them develop their personal relationship with God. Can nobody take them stories from you? When stuff happened in your life, nobody but God did it for you. Nobody can take that from you.
Yeah, and Sonya, I'll say this, right? Like I mentioned earlier, when I went through my phase of trying to run away from God, when I came back and I looked at those same scriptures that I learned, in church and things like that, and I was able to put my own personal experiences with God. Those scriptures meant something different, or
Hmm.
I won't say they meant something different, but I saw them in a different level or a deeper level. Like
Hmm.
when it says the word is a living word, like I believe it grows with your experience with
Right.
God, right? And so when you go back and you and again as Christians, like you just shared three testimonial things about your life, right? That I believe that someone's going to listen to that and hear those things and be able to relate to that. Their understanding, it adds validity to what the Word of God says. You know what I mean? And like I said, there's theologians that can break down this and why this and how many different things support this, and There was a David,
Mhm.
historically, and there was a Goliath historic. Like all of that, I'm pretty sure can be broken down from like a knowledge sense. But what you're talking about is, and I put this scripture up while you were talking. They have been conquered. They conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word
The
of their
word of the
testimony.
testimony.
And they did
Mhm.
not love their lives so much to shy away from death. Right? It's that testimony. It's who we are, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. Again, it's important not to look at people and base who God is off of them, but it is important for us as Christians to be very truthful about our relationship with God and where we are with God. And if we're struggling and stuff and we have doubt in something and somebody gonna ask us about it, stop pretending like
Mhm.
like like it ain't what it really is. You know what I mean? There's Christians walking around with mental health issues,
That's
Right.
right.
with bipolarism, with
That's right.
ADHD and things
High
like
blood
that.
pressure.
That high blood
That's
pressure
right.
that ain't
That's right.
never have never really sought help because again the overall culture in Christianity and in some places you know doesn't doesn't highlight it or smiles or says that's a negative thing. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
then these people are trying to have an understanding of a God that requires faith, that requires them to to open up having a relationship with a God that they can't see, and it's hard for them to have a relationship with people that they can't see um,
Mhm.
because of
Mm.
traumas and because of
Mhm.
different things in their life. So um, yeah, I think this is a really really good conversation. We're about 11 minutes over.
Let,
Um,
let me let me share one thing before you shut the button
yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go.
Listen, if you can hear me right now, you're under the sound of my voice. I want you to, in whatever way you can, get a hold of it via video or whatever the case may be. Go and get your hands on I Want My Daddy, the hit stage play,
He
because
can't.
our very own
He can't do it.
Lasagna T. Witt busted on that stage and knocked it out the park. I mean, was up there acting up. Do you hear me? Acting
Can't.
up. I say, boy, look at my people right there. Look at her go.
Oh
Listen,
Lord.
I'm so godly proud of you, Lasagna. And I just was like, I felt like, you know what I'm saying, your granddad or something. I was that proud. I was more proud than a dad. I was like granddad proud. You heard me? Like you was doing it. You was
Yeah,
Kelly.
doing it,
Okay.
doing it. I enjoyed, everybody else and what they did. But like I said, you know what I'm saying, preemptively, you know what I'm saying, I knew what you was gonna get up there and do. And you did exactly what I expected. You were the show. You were the
He,
show.
he can't.
Period.
I
Period.
had a good time with all my fellow actors. I thought they were amazing. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, a show is only as good as its weakest link. When you put on something of a production of that magnitude, everybody made the function. Everybody doing their roles made the whole thing come together. So it just made my role even better because they did they piece that good. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I had a great time. I love
Yeah.
that cast. They did good. Our
yeah.
Yeah.
director was awesome. It was good.
Yeah, we've been doing this too long together, man. Because I had
Yeah.
that picture ready to go. I wanted to end the show with that, man.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
completely agree with Dion. What an amazing show! I really, really enjoyed myself throughout the whole production. And again, I might be biased, but Lasagna, you did a wonderful job. Every actor up there, I actually I saw the what's the young man with the
Which one?
bald headed young man that he was married. He proposed to
Oh yeah, Zach.
the young lady.
Yeah,
I
Zach.
saw Zach at church. He was in
Praising God Sunday. Joe
yeah,
no.
he was up there dancing at the altar, and
He don't play.
I was on
Zach
my
don't play. Zach gonna praise him some God. Don't play with Zach. You don't get out the way. You gonna get ran over. You gonna be flat.
You know, but you know, to Dion's point, I would definitely encourage. Like, you know, I don't know if they did get to record it.
Yeah, she
If
did
they
have a
didn't,
videographer. Hmm.
you know, if as soon as y'all can get y'all hands on it, there's definitely some topics, some things in there that you
Hmm.
know, thought provoking and
Yeah.
you know will really you know be good for you to experience. And like she said last week when she was on the show, if you wanted to come to y'all area, you know, reach out to Cheryl. I'll put her information in the description as well. You know, just holler at her
Hmm.
and she'll get y'all. She'll get you straight. She'll
Yeah.
get the cast out there.
Oh.
But yeah, Dion, right on point, man. Really, really good time. Proud of you, sis, and
So
looking
Yeah.
I
forward,
appreciate
you know,
y'all.
doing some many more things with that. Like you was definitely in
Absolutely.
your vein.
Yeah. You chicken.
Be the talk show where we keep